So Command is like one of my favorite spells in D&D. The first time I ever played, first session, my DM led the group into an ice cave where goblins had recently come through and invaded some village. And we were investigating, we heard some rustling in the back, and as we entered, we saw this fat, stubby little goblin face first, like a pile of jerky. So we tied him up, we began interrogating him, and we weren't getting anything out of him. It turns out that he wasn't exactly the mastermind behind the goblin's plans. He was essentially the runt of the group, and had the appetite of a pig as well. But before we let him go, I thought, you know what, there's gotta be one more thing I can try. I had to go back and think about that time I was an acolyte, and try to recall one of the tactics my mentor priests had taught me. And it was in that first session that I discovered my magnum opus. Channeling the divine powers of the gods, I commanded the small goblin to poop. Okay, so not all my videos are gonna be about poo. Maybe most of them. The little guy filled his pants to the brim, and that was the moment that really cemented the fact that my antics for every session would be a burden on the group. We cleaned up the goblin the best we could, and discovered he was pretty harmless actually. We learned his name was Squee. We befriended him, and for the rest of the campaign, he became the glue of the group. He was the little goblin that we could combine our efforts to try and teach him our skills, or give him magic loot, or win a fight for. We even commissioned a custom suit for him. He was quite dashing there at the end. I'm getting off track though. The spell Command lets you speak a one-word command to a creature. And if that creature fails a wisdom saving throw, they must follow the command as long as it doesn't put them in harm's way, and there are some other boring rules. The spell gives examples of ways you can disarm enemies or make them fall to the ground or go prone, but I think a great DM, depending on how poorly the creature rolls their wisdom saving throw, would be able to apply some of these negative effects, even if you use other commands that aren't directly related. This spell's great because it's not healing or damage, or you're not summoning anything. It's a simpleman spell, a spell used by dads everywhere. In fact, I want to make a character who's just a lawful neutral dad who wants everyone else to just keep it down. Maybe like a paladin barbarian that goes aggro if people are loud. His dad stash is what gives him proficiency in intimidation. At like level 10, he can have a midlife crisis and want to get a Mustang. Okay, I'm not staying focused. The one-word requirement is amazing because it limits your options, which actually requires more interpretation and more thinking outside of the box. It's sort of like a game of cat and mouse between you and your DM. You can say a one-word command, but it's ultimately going to be up to your DM's interpretation. You can try to convince them with more words of what you're trying to do, but that only opens up the floodgates to them messing with you and doing something completely different. My favorite strategy when using the spell is really just to embarrass the enemy. Some of my favorite commands are to tell them to sing, dance, kiss, yodel, cry, smile, eat, worship, salute, frolic, frump, flump. Get your thesaurus, because the more words you know, the more silly you can get. And that's why it's the best spell. From the first session to the last, you can make the game more silly. And just in case, if you ever need it, against the final boss, in your back pocket, you can always come back to Command Poop. It's a classic.